on the Everett Ellison show. We're going to talk about the Democratic Party murder machine and how these jokers just can't get enough of killing and how they kill us and we don't even know it. Today on the Everett Ellison show. All right, let's get this thing started. You know, man, I have seen some messed up stuff in my time. As I've told you before, I've seen some messed up stuff in my time. I worked in the penitentiary. So I saw murders, I've seen, I haven't seen rapes, but I've had them reported to me. I've seen jokers got their head crashed in with baseball bats, stabbings, knife fights. I've seen a lot. But one of the most messed up things I ever saw in my life was on Sunday, this past Sunday. March 9th, 2025. I'm sitting at my house. I'm minding my own business. Y'all ain't bothering nobody. Getting ready to sit down and eat me some dinner. And I do what I always do, trying to stay up on things. Turned on the news, ABC News. I'm watching it, this and that and that, and it's happening. Then all of a sudden I saw them say, today, Selma, Alabama, and I leaned over because I said Selma. They celebrated the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Now to a seminal moment in the civil rights movement, the 60th anniversary of what is now known as Bloody Sunday. Marchers linking arms and crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. 60 years ago, peaceful protesters were brutally beaten by state troopers and local police. Why some say there's still unfinished business in Selma, Alabama. More now from ABC's Alex Perchet.
Today, crowds gathered in Selma, Alabama to mark the 60th anniversary of a key turning point in the civil rights movement. Reverend Al Sharpton saying the fight for equality continues.
Today, they are threatening the same rights that they went across that bridge to deal with 60 years ago.
Demonstrators marching between there and Montgomery in 1965 in an effort to loosen Jim Crow's hold on the South. As they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the 600 peaceful protesters were met by state troopers on horseback, armed with batons, tear gas, and hate. The chaos captured on camera, images spreading around the world. The moral outrage led to President Lyndon Johnson's signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, just 5 months after what became known as Bloody Sunday. One of the march organizers was a boy from Troy, John Lewis, who would go on to serve more than 3 decades in Congress. In 2015, sharing a stage with Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush during the 50th anniversary ceremony. Lewis died in 2020. Tonight, his spirit and that of other civil rights icons marches on.
And when you see injustice, always be prepared to show up, to stand up, and to speak up for what is right.
Lindsay, since 2020, there have been several unsuccessful attempts to pass legislation named after Congressman John Lewis that would strengthen the Voting Rights Act. And most recently, a bill was introduced this week. Lindsay?
Alex, thank you.
By marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I said, oh, man. Sure enough, the cameras were there. And I said to myself, if Donald Trump is in front of that crowd with that march, I'm walking out this room. He wasn't there. And I said, glory, hallelujah, thank you. There's still some sanity in this world. Trump wasn't there. Oh, but Hakeem Jeffries was there. He was the minority leader in the House. His name, Hakeem. The Joker's got the personality of a catcher's mitt. Just as boring. I mean, if that's the best they got, yeah, the Democrats are really in trouble. Hakeem was there. They had Jesse Jackson's old behind in a wheelchair, all bent over. I don't know why he was there. Jesse Jackson, same guy that at the Rain Motel put on a fake bloody shirt and said he held Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his arms while he was dying and lied about it. You know, Jesse Jackson that called New York Hymantown, called black people the N-word, outside children. Yeah, that Jesse Jackson. I think Al Sharpton, with his conch, you know, Malcolm X said the conch was a visual representation of black self-hate. So I guess it's very cool and not necessarily right that he should have one, because he really is a visual representation of black self-hate. He was there. They had Maxine Waters old shriveled up behind there. She's walking. So it was the greatest hits of black failure and American failure on that bridge that day, walking in Selma, one of the poorest cities in the United States of America. Selma, Alabama. And one of the saddest things about it, y'all, the Washington Post covered it. So I saw it on the news that night. I said, well, that shouldn't make much news because it's such a stupid thing. I got up this morning. This is March 10th. Turned on picked up the newspaper, on my phone. And said, at Selma's Civil Rights Anniversary, fears rise about the way forward. Fear. Fear. They said here in this story, to many here, including Richardson, the year's march felt more somber than usual. It took place against the backdrop of intense attacks on voting rights. Intense attacks on voting rights. On voting rights, education, and fair housing laws by President Donald Trump and his allies. In his first 2 months in office, Trump has also rolled back a litany of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs meant to correct age-old discrimination. And he has sought to restore what the White House has described as a merit-based opportunity that will promote national unity. Did you hear how they put that? It took place against the backdrop of intense attacks on voting rights, education, and fair housing laws by President Donald Trump and his allies. What a lie. And then there were concrete signs of what critics call an attempt to diminish or whitewash the nation's fraught racial history. The historic Montgomery bus station, housing and museum honoring the Freedom Riders who helped power the early civil rights movement, was among the federal properties that the administration indicated could be sold, though that list was later taken offline. They're trying to use fear as a tactic, y'all, because the Democratic Party is a murder machine. Its primary goal is to get power so it can kill people. Since Roe v. Wade, they've killed over 65 million children. The murder in the black community is astronomical all over the nation. We're beyond our rate of replacement. More people are dying in America than are being born, and the Democrat Party says full speed ahead because they are a murder machine. They want to take away your right to defend yourself with the Second Amendment because they want government to have all power. How does a free man defend his rights? The Second Amendment. The government doesn't defend your rights, you defend your rights. They want open borders. They want to allow fentanyl across the border. Drugs. Donald Trump is trying to put tariffs on Mexico and Canada for one reason, to keep the fentanyl out. Democrats are fighting him. Why? Because they want the fentanyl in. Why do they want the fentanyl in? Because Mexican cartels bring that stuff across the border. How do they keep the border open? The cartels have lawyers in Washington, D.C. These lawyers are also lobbyists. These lobbyists go to D.C. and they give these Democrats money to vote against and filibuster any attempt to seal that border. So the fentanyl just comes into America and kills American citizens. Over 100,000 citizens die a year from fentanyl poisoning. And the Democrats don't care. It's a murder machine. And then they got the hip-hop culture. Why would you celebrate a culture where the people that perform in that culture, the rappers and entertainers, have close to 40 their chance of getting murdered in America is 40 times higher than any other American citizen. A culture of rape, of violence, of sexual promiscuity, of racism, of misogyny, of misandry, all of it. And yet Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had a 50th anniversary celebrating hip-hop. A genre that came out of the prisons and the ghettos of America, celebrating the worst of human life, elevating it, making money off of it. Just like the dope game, just like the abortion industry. Yeah, that's your Democratic Party. Party of perverts, liars, psychopaths, anti-Christian bigots, thugs, hoes, and rappers. So they walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, singing, of course, "We shall overcome." Selma is one of the poorest cities in the United States of America, and they're talking about Voting Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and voting. Why is that important, y'all? The Democratic Party can only keep power, and they can use that power to murder and kill people only if black people vote in large numbers for them, and that's like 90%. And black people vote 90% for the Democratic Party when they are afraid, not when they're hopeful, when they're scared. The Democratic Party murder machine. Donald Trump says, we want peace between Russia and Ukraine. People are dying daily. Millions have died. And the Democratic Party says, no, we want the war to continue. Let's give them more money to kill more people. Do you see how sane they are? He brings Zelensky to the White House and says, let's make peace. He talked to Putin. Putin said, let's make peace. Zelensky shows his behind at the White House, and the Democrats support Zelensky for not making peace. You know what? Murder machine. And so they need the black vote to keep this murder machine going. So here's what they say, again, the Washington Post story. People are afraid. That's the quote from Selma Mayor James Perkins, Jr., Democrat. But Perkins told this to a room of more than 36 members of Congress and other elected officials, mostly Democrats, who had descended on his majority African-American city, where many residents still live below the poverty line. Now, I don't say many, most. Perkins, who grew up in Selma under segregation laws and is the city's first black mayor. All right, go Perkins. First black mayor. He proud of that. I'm the first black mayor of Selma. First black man to make a white man standard. That's how all those stupid fools think. He likened that fear to what he felt as a child when his grandparents shoved him under a bed to hide as members of the Ku Klux Klan drove through the city, terrorizing black members. Well, that tells it all, don't it? Shoved him under the bed. Daddy should have got a gun and went out there and shot them off their horses. They wouldn't have rode through there anymore. Well, that's what cowards do. They march, and they beg the government to give them what they need. They're talking about the Voting Rights Act. You know the reason why the Voting Rights Act was pulled back? It was pulled back because the people down south, that the liberals could no longer prove that there was any discrimination down south when it came to voting. None. They showed that black people were voting in higher percentages than white people were. And so the question became, okay, show me where the discrimination is down south when statistics show that black people are voting in higher numbers than whites. How is there discrimination when you got more black people voting percentage-wise than white people? Show me the discrimination. And they couldn't show it. Supreme Court says, well, if you can't show me discrimination, why do we need this act? Well, they said, well, they might discriminate again someday. Supreme Court says the law doesn't work that way. The law doesn't work based upon what you might do. The law works based upon what you've done and what you are doing. You haven't been able to show me any discrimination down south for the past 40 years. You're not able to show me any now. So why do we need the Voting Rights Act when there is no evidence of people's voting rights being violated? It's a canard. It's imaginary. They're talking about voting rights are being diminished. Where? How? These people are liars. And they're trying to scare black people into voting for them so they can go out there and do the dirt that they've always done. LGBTQ, climate change, open borders, taking away your right to keep and bear arms, locking children in failing schools, and aborting babies up till the 9th month. That's their main one right there. They got to make sure that the god of Moloch, their god, is being fed human flesh. Now they got to do that. And then they got to get money from the pharmaceutical industry. So they got both things going on here. They get money from Planned Parenthood and the pharmaceutical industry, and they get a chance to satiate their bloodlust because they are a murder machine. So they got these guys walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge again, singing, "We shall overcome." If there's one thing they need to overcome, that is the stupidity of the Democrat Party. A party that has become so absolutely good at what it does. Again, man, black people used to have all kinds of children. My grandmama had 16 children. My mother had 7. My great-grandmother had 14. Do you know now that we are beyond the rate of replacement? More black people are dying now than having children. Never thought we'd get here. We're here. They got to bring all these illegals in because we're dying as a nation. The Democratic Party policies that we warned you about for the past 40, 50 years have finally taken hold, and now we become a nation of fratricide that kills itself. Now you got Africa. Jokers running around in grass and in huts, barefoot, famine all over the place. They have a rate of replacement higher than the United States of America. All these primitive countries where jokers ain't got hardly no standard of living, life expectancy might be 45 years old. And they have a rate of replacement higher than the United States of America. Their countries are growing. Countries that are dying, atheist communist countries. China, Western Europe, United States of America, maybe Japan because it has kind of the same standards that the United States of America has. But all of these countries that have become anti-Christian, anti-God, yeah, dying. And look like the black racists in America are going to kind of get what they want, but they're going to destroy themselves at the same time. It's almost like a kamikaze. He destroys his enemy, but he dies at the same time. It seems like America's on this kamikaze quest. Black America is on this kamikaze quest to destroy itself, along with white America too. It's bad enough that you say, I want to destroy white America, but, we're going to thrive. Oh, no. Your hatred for white America is so great that you're going to destroy yourself in the process. Destroy your relationship with your God in the process. It's amazing and it's sad. It is incredibly insane to watch in real time when you're a person with a big brain like me, and I'm sitting there watching this thing and say, wow, well, this is amazing, and people don't even understand what's going on now. And even when you look at the statistics and you tell people about it like what I'm doing here, they continue on with it. So this story in the Washington Post continues. These very, very sad people actually believing that they should be afraid of the United States of America. It says that worry that the country may be on the brink of eroding any progress it has made on issues of race and power hung like a cloud as thousands gathered in Selma and Montgomery in recent days to remember Bloody Sunday. They question not only what will happen now, but also who will rise in the next generation to take on what many described as the biggest challenge to civil rights since 1960s. Wow. All of that, and I've never felt the level of fear and anxiety that we're feeling right now, Perkins told lawmakers Friday. People are genuinely hurting. Fear again. Fear. 365 times in the Bible, God orders us to fear not. One for every day of the year. Fear not. Nevertheless, we got a bunch of black preachers and black leaders telling Christians who supposedly believe in God to fear. You see why this is an anti-Christian movement? You see why I call them a party of perverts, liars, psychopaths, and anti-Christian bigots? Fear. Well, they got a problem with me because I ain't scared of a damn thing. Sure ain't scared of them. Why am I not afraid? Because I'm an heir of Jesus Christ and I'm a child of God. God did not give me, God did not give me the spirit of fear. Fear comes from Satan. So when you admit that you're afraid, you admit that you've been overcome by Satan. And all of these black people walking around crying and snotting, talking about they're afraid, you need to understand that all of them that flew down in their private jets, that want power, need to understand that all they're doing is being used to implement this murder machine for the Democratic Party. So they're crying. Oh, they got Raphael Warnock down there. They got, they're speaking at the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church in Selma. Warnock, who leads Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. preached until 1968 assassination, acknowledged that he sometimes felt weary. Raphael said, I feel weary. But what he described as the Trump administration's war against the poor and the efforts to undo racial equity. Like there is racial equity, whatever the hell that is. If you ask them what does racial equity look like, they can't tell you. So, sir, tell me what racial equity would look like here in the United States of America. They'd be like, they look over for some white liberal to tell them something because they don't know what it is. He said, I didn't think we'd be fighting these battles all over again, Warnock said. But in a sermon that was often fiery, he pushed people to keep fighting, keep fighting. And tap into that strength of those who marched before them, even when the outcome was uncertain. We shall overcome someday, Warnock said. I think, we shall overcome someday. Boy, I tell you what. Oh, man. Warnock spoke from the same place where civil rights leaders held their first mass meetings to encourage black residents to register to vote in 1963, and where activists secretly met ahead of the original Bloody Sunday March and a similar meeting as part of the 60th anniversary celebration. Many speakers not only nodded to the church's activist history, but likened those days to what is happening now. Let me tell you something, bruh. The church shouldn't have no activist history in civil rights. They should be having activist history in bringing people to Christ and then preparing those people to live the rest of eternity in the presence of Christ. They shouldn't be involved. If you want to be involved in politics, there's enough organizations out there for you to get your behind involved in. A lot of them. Democratic Party, Black Lives Matter, NAACP, CORE, Urban League. Join one of them. But the church has a set mission. And Martin Luther King Jr. and them and those bunch of miscreants got inside the black church and turned it into a political arm of the Democrat Party. End of story. And it's been dying ever since. People lamenting the fact that the black church is dying. It's dying because you ain't coming to church to get a political lesson. You're learning to get spiritually fed. You're coming to get spiritually fed. Got these no-good, jack-leg black preachers. I remember Bloody Sunday. Oh, they talked about John Lewis on the Sunday night news. They beat the hell out of John Lewis on the Edmund Pettus Bridge that day. And like I said before, John Lewis was like a crash test dummy. They put him out there because John Lewis could take a hell of a lot of punches. And I met John Lewis. I think he got some brain damage behind it. I told the John Lewis story that made a lot of people laugh. But they vote. And here's something, if you take nothing else from this podcast today, please take this and keep this with you. The best advice and the best sage advice and the best line I could give you from this whole thing is this. It is not that these black people do not vote. It is who they vote for that is the problem. You got that? They vote. That's not the problem. 60-70% of them vote. The problem is who they vote for. And who do they vote for? A bunch of communists and Marxists, and then when they live like the people used to live down in the old Soviet Union, in poverty, dictator worship, alcoholism and drug abuse, apostate religion, they mad about it. You voting it in. Don't feel sorry for none of them. For the rest of America, let me tell y'all something. Don't feel sorry for none of these people. The best thing you can do for a lot of them is put some barbed wire up around them and let them deal with their own with their own decisions. And let the rest of the world see, let the rest of America see what happens when you vote for the Democratic Party. You shouldn't send them no aid. You shouldn't send them anything. You just say, you're a Democrat, live with the consequences of the decision you just made. We're always going down there and rescuing them. And they are never, ever thankful. I can't remember one time, as they say in the country, and one of them jokers ever came on TV and said, we want to thank America for what it's done for us. Every time, we want more. Give them more. We want more. Give them more. We want more. Give them more. All of them can't march because they're too fat. Oh, they all, you're wobbling, wobbling. Got obesity problem. When I was a little boy, when a joker was poor, they were skinny. Skinny was a side word for being poor. That man sure was poor looking. Poor people couldn't eat. Not now. Throw away probably 25% of the food in America. We don't eat it. Poor people got Obama phones. Poor people got air conditioning, got running water and toilets. It's hard. And then they want to get up there and complain. And a lot of them ain't working for any of it. And instead of them go to the doctor when they want to, go to school when they want to, But instead of saying thank you, no gratitude, which is the number one, which is a necessary human trait to be civilized. Not them. Even now, after everything America has done, it spent more money on the welfare state than any country in the history of the world. They don't care. This is why we need to cut them off. Let them keep marching. They're going to be surprised when America pays them no attention. And here again, I want to give to the rest of America, outside of this little slither of people who still believe there's value in the foolishness that they're doing. I want to apologize to all of y'all for what y'all had to witness on on Sunday, when they marched across the Everett Ellison Bridge singing, "We Shall Overcome." I know most of y'all was just like me sitting there watching this and, boy, this is some bull crap. These old jokers are still trying to relive the civil rights movement. They're still trying to gaslight people and believing there's some virtue in that movement, even after marching for 60 years. That's like me trying to fix a car for 60 years and it still ain't running, and I'm celebrating myself. You celebrating failure. You're celebrating 60 years of failure. Well, failure for us, but you know, they on top. All those old jokers out there probably millionaires off the backs of poor black people. 60 years of failure. But they need the black vote to keep the murder machine going. They got to kill people, and you got to give them permission to do it. I hope you will take that permission away and say, never again, it's over. I want you to stand up and tell the Democratic Party, I will no longer stay silent in the face of pure evil. And the Democratic Party is pure evil. You got to say, I will never, ever support a party again. There was a party of slavery from 1800 to 1860. The party of the Confederacy from 1860 to 1865. The party of Jim Crow from 1865 to 1965. And now the party of transgenderism, sex change operations for children. Part of a 9-month abortion and fentanyl and sex trafficking across the border. I'll never support you again. Not going to die and go to hell for you. Because if you don't do it, you can best believe I'm not going to let you rest. Because I'm here to wake you up. Hope I did you some good today. So come join me again for another edition of the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, friends, Vince Everett Ellison is here. I want you to go to my website. And on my website, you're going to see a lot of great stuff, man. You're going to see that we got t-shirts, we got caps. You got my books, my documentaries. You got all kinds of stuff on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Go there. We're dropping new t-shirts. We're dropping new merchandise. My new book, The End of Tolerance, is there. The End of Tolerance. Make sure you get it. Make it #1. If you got my first 3, get The End of Tolerance. It's just as good. And it's telling us we have to end our tolerance with these leftists, these Democrats. We can no longer allow them to sexually groom our children. We can no longer allow them to castrate little boys and call them little girls, run God out of the public square, take away our guns, take away our sovereignty. No longer allow it. So go on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. That is VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Hit merchandise. You'll see the t-shirts. You'll see the caps. You'll see the books. You'll see the documentaries. You'll see it all. And let's keep this ball rolling. God bless you.